Hey y'all, how are you? I hope you're well. It's Odessa, Doctorate of Natural Medicine, Womb Wellness Coach, and I wanted to come and talk to you all today. So, what happens when you actually stop focusing on others before your own well-being? This is what I'm going to be talking to you all about. And so this is for my ladies who are doulas, who are labor and delivery nurses, who are health practitioners and healers, who are currently suffering from chronic health problems or from feminine health problems. Right now, you're probably experiencing irregular cycles, infertility. You might be experiencing unexplained fatigue or insomnia. You might be feeling unsure of yourself and of your body. You may be feeling a sense of inner turmoil with your own health, right? These are the women who I tend to be attracting to me lately these days. And so I'm talking to you, and as a health practitioner, you may feel this kind of imposter syndrome, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you want to help other women but you can't seem to help yourself. You may feel like, who am I to help these women? Um, you know what I mean? And this is really where the crux of where we are right now. And being in this space is one space, is one particular area where we take up based on, our lifestyle habits, what we've exposed ourselves to, the things that we're comfortable and familiar with. But if you are in that group, I think, and I know, and from what I'm seeing and experiencing around me, you'd rather have a sense of security and confidence in your body, right? And you want to have a better understanding of how it's functioning, right? What I've also seen and what I know is that you would rather feel more rested, you'd rather not feel stressed, you'd rather not feel so overwhelmed with your symptoms, and you don't want to feel overwhelmed with the emotions behind them, right? So feeling like you've got it all together, that's kind of that space that I'm talking about, or at least if you don't have a clear understanding of what's happening in your body, if you don't know that you have a specific diagnosis that you're working with, that you actually feel confident at least about what it is that you're doing to get you to that place of wellness that you so desire to be in, right? And I want to take a minute to talk about that place of wellness that you're looking for. For me, this shows up in the word equilibrium. And it isn't necessarily a place, you know what I mean? But more of an experience, and being able to auto-regulate. That's what this is looking like for me. And so it's like we're always in this state of flux, right? And that's just how life is. We move from one extreme to the other. The pendulum swings. Sometimes it goes to the far, far ends, and sometimes it stays a little bit more in the center. And this is our life. These are our emotions. This is life and death. It's, you know what I mean? Like the ups and the downs. And when when we do have our fluctuations, when we do have our moments of, moving into feeling in control and in alignment with everything around us and within us, if you get to that place, and the other place being nothing is in control, nothing is working for you, and everything is a disorder and a chaos, the first thing that you have to think about is, what are your baseline standards of health? You know what I mean? What is my baseline in everything, in all areas of my life, in all aspects? What is that? And what does that look like? And then the other question I want you to ask yourself is, how quickly can you adapt to where you're at, right? And so for me, these two blend together to create that experience of equilibrium. So back to this imposter syndrome, what happens is whereas you'd rather feel like you've got it all together, or even if you don't have it all together, you're on that path. It's your job to help women with their health, or with their womb issues, or whatever it is that they're doing, but you can't seem to help yourself. So it's kind of like a person who's giving relationship advice but can't seem to be in a great relationship, in a good relationship, right? So, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating because you do feel like you should have been able to help yourself, and you should do better. You can do better. You know that you have options. You know that something can be done. I've heard many, many women say this. It's like you're kind of on that route, and you know that there's more. You're searching and you're looking, because there has to be more than what you're experiencing right now. And it isn't as though you haven't tried researching things like Google. What does what causes my period symptoms, or typing in, how to heal PCOS naturally. And a big one is how the best foods for gas and inflammation. You may have also tried herbs like red raspberry, or maca root, or motherwort, and questioning how these herbs are supposed to work, the length of time they're supposed to work, the dosage, the quality, the source. You may have also tried changing your diet, removing, eliminating, adding, turning around, throwing it up, putting it on the garbage. And you may also have followed popular herbalists, nutritionists, or moving magic related accounts. And when it comes to that place of feeling as though you're in a state of disequilibrium, this is exactly what my client, Kay, had been dealing with. I'm not going to give her whole name, but she was experiencing period pains that were on a scale of 9 on 10. She had fibroids, she had multiple fibroids, and she also had received irregular, abnormal blood panels from her gynecologist. And so she had arrived at the point on her journey where her doctor was asking her to seriously consider getting a hysterectomy. So when she came to me, this is where our story begins. And so as we moved deeper into my client's health journey, as we walked through her MAP process, we began to discover that she was abusing medication to get by. And there are many, many, many people who do this. And at one point, she was taking, pretty strong pain medication, and was taking way more than was suggested. And for me, like with painkillers, a couple is a lot, right? So if you have the amount in a day and you keep adding on, that's a prescribed medication, that's a lot. So she was taking this, and one thing that I have to say, I'm not dogging on my clients, this is a conversation that I have very often. Uh, oh, please excuse me. Sorry about that. So one thing I do want to make sure and say is that, sometimes when we rely on medication, or oftentimes, I should say, when we rely on medication, our bodies begin to become immune. They develop an immunity. They become, nutrient deficient, and they become immune. And so, whereas you're taking the medication, your body's used to it. You need to boost the amounts to feel the effects of them, right? And so, this is where it's like, okay, let's look at the gravity of this. You are taking really strong medication, and she didn't realize just how detrimental it was, because what was happening was she was causing more inflammation and stress, specifically on her liver, which needed to be in a healthy working order to help her move through the reproductive health problems that she was walking through. And why I speak about the liver specifically is because within Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, we talk about the kidneys, the spleen, and the liver as being three main organs that are in charge of the reproductive cycle and functioning. I mean, you have help and support from many other things, but this is kind of how we look at it globally, and that's one perspective of health. And so when you're taking pain medication, when you're taking medication, everything goes through the liver first, and it has to be processed, and it has to, go through the body. And so after it's been metabolized, and if you are taking too much medication, this is like overtime. You know what I mean? Imagine like those nurses and who were working, front care workers, frontline healthcare workers who were working during COVID. You know what I mean? And then like this is that kind of work is what's happening inside of your physical body when you are taking too much medication. Okay, just to kind of give you an example of the kind of stress that you're putting on their body. They were tired, they were exhausted, right? But they had to keep on going because they were needed, and it's their function, right? So let's consider this. And so because of her taking this pain medication, her organs were in a deficient state, right? So as opposed to, kind of, being a little bit off, there was a lot of work that had to be done to be able to bring her back to, out of the red and into the green or starting at zero, to be able to be removed from that list of having a hysterectomy performed. And so what she really needed to do for herself was to work on getting her menstrual cycle and her pain under control, right? And so the way that she had to do this was by changing her mindset, okay? She had to learn how to build bridges to her future self rather than burn them, okay? She needed to address her stress levels. Stress creates heat and inflammation in the body, and chronic stress creates depression. It reduces dopamine levels in the body and it creates depression, right? And so you're fighting through, burning bridges and, excess inflammation, which is holding your energy down because we are energetic beings. You feel good and sometimes you don't feel good because you're actually influenced by chronic state conditions of health that you didn't even know were affecting you. Okay. She had to address her eating because food is medicine. You're going to hear me say this all of the time. Food is medicine. If you're not addressing your health through your food and you're continuing to eat processed foods and things that you know are not going to support your body, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. Food is medicine. And then her habits, right? That came with all of these things, right? And learning to really create a cohesive pastiche and the emotions that come behind the thoughts that drive the actions. So these beliefs that she was carrying, the emotional system on a whole is connected to the reproductive system, which is connected to the endocrine system. And so when the emotions are suppressed, it also affects the endocrine system. And for women, the womb space is a very emotional space. It's a very, energetically charged space. And so if you're experiencing imbalances, it's usually something that's related to hormones affecting your reproductive health system. And so she needed to consider her mindset, her stress levels, her eating habits, and her emotions before considering a hysterectomy. Okay, this is what needs to go into the work. And so her body needed to reset. Okay. She needed to reset so she can slowly find and understand the problem. And so does yours. Your body needs to reset so you can slow down and understand what the problem is. And so this is why I decided to host a Yoni Steam masterclass, a Yoni Steam and meditation masterclass this Sunday on Zoom. Yoni steaming is the perfect way to detox the vagina because it removes residual blood from your previous cycles. It drains and it nourishes the tissue of the vulva. It's able to help stimulate circulation, blood flow, lymphatic flow, so many wonderful things. And so it also helps to reduce the length of days a woman's menstrual cycle. And I know that there are many women who could use a couple of days break from excess menstrual cycles. And so I just wanted to come on and invite you to click on the link in my bio to register. I would love to see you there. I'm going to be walking through some of the key and crucial pieces of creating your own yoni steam process and helping you to connect to the breath and to the womb and to the heart through meditation. So I hope to see you there. Make sure to click on the link in the bio, and I'll come back again soon and have more conversations with you. Take care.